tendency for managers like us, like me, a lot of us do it. We see someone who gets 20 points coming out of nowhere, and we go, "Oh, I think I want to add that guy to my team." And that's who we bid on for waivers, or that's who we add through free agency, and that becomes our target. We don't go to the guy who gets 6 points, on 5 carries for 60 yards, and if they're a deep backup. But maybe we should. It depends on the context. So I'm going to talk through for a few minutes waiver guys that I'm targeting, and waiver guys that I would caution folks to stay away from heading into week 4. A lot of you have waivers Wednesday morning. I do as well. So let's start with quarterback. And I want to preface this by saying, Michael Penix, week 1, had 24 points, fantasy points. In the last 2 games, he's averaged about 4.5. He might not even start week 4. Who knows? Following week, Bryce Young, Spencer Rattler, Mac Jones all had 20 plus. If we lean into these guys because they get a lot of points, it doesn't always work out, as we know. And a lot of times, they're kind of, a waste of a pick because they don't have the, either the talent level to sustain that or the upcoming matchups don't allow for them to break through the way they did in that earlier week. Caleb Williams is a good example, but not a great example because Caleb Williams is startable a bunch of weeks. But he played Dallas. Dallas's defense is pretty easy to walk through if you're a starting quarterback in this league. So of course Caleb Williams goes off, and people should acknowledge that if Caleb Williams travels to Green Bay, it's going to be a different story. So I'm looking at Sam Darnold, for example, as I have all season, as I have all preseason. Some of you may be tired of me saying, "Hey, pick up Sam Darnold." And some of you might correctly say, "What has he done for me lately?" I think he's getting 15, 16 points a game in the last couple games. This past week against the Saints wasn't really his fault. He only threw it 18 times. It was a blowout. He was lucky to get 2 TD passes. He's got Arizona and Tampa Bay coming up, Jacksonville, Houston, before he gets to his bye. It's favorable enough. And he has arguably a top 5 fantasy wideout, Jackson Smith and Jigba, who obviously I've been pushing since the summer. He is the real deal. He is the alpha. And then, he has a great complementary cast. Darnold should be good for a baseline of 15, 16 points. And if you're talking about picking up a quarterback, especially if you're in a deep league, I'm not talking about Superflex because Darnold's probably rostered in pretty much every Superflex, but in 12-team, 14-team league, you want to get a guy like Darnold, especially because you might have a quarterback who's coming up on a bye, you might have a quarterback who gets hurt, and Darnold gets you reliable points. There are exceptions, I get it, but in general, he will get you reliable points. There's too much talent on that team, and he is too good to just get single digits a bunch of times this season. And as you're getting at here, you understand this. He's only rostered in 7.7% of ESPN leagues. He is a deep throw. I'm doing here long shot picks. I'm not going to tell you to pick up a guy who's rostered in 78% of leagues. I mean, Jared Goff technically is rostered in 77.7% of leagues. You don't need me to say, make sure you have Jared Goff. That's kind of ridiculous. I'm looking for the deep cuts. Justin Fields is another one, which sounds a little odd, and he's going to be dropping in terms of his rostership. He's below 70%. I'm making an exception here because he is dropping, and I don't think he should be dropping because if for no other reason, he's got Miami and Dallas in weeks 4 and 5. I think that as long as he is healthy, this is a guy who scored almost 30 fantasy points in week 1 against Pittsburgh. If he is healthy for weeks 4 and 5, he should be rostered. Rest of season, who knows? He does get Cincinnati in week 8. He has some very favorable matchups. Then starting in week 10, he's got Cleveland at the Patriots, at the Ravens. Good luck with that, in my opinion, although we just saw what Detroit did to Baltimore. But still, I'm not trusting Justin Fields every week, which is why I urge people not to draft him this summer. That said, he has some very favorable matchups. He should be rostered in pretty much every league, if only for those matchups. And keep in mind, your opponent might want to get Justin Fields, and you do not want that to happen in those weeks. So if nothing else, it's a block. Stay away from Carson Wentz. I did a podcast about him on Saturday, I think it was, talking about, this was a really pivotal game for him, and it could change his fantasy fortunes as well as his NFL fortunes. He did absolutely fine, and he played Cincinnati. Next, he goes at Pittsburgh, then at Cleveland. You don't want to waste your time picking up a guy like Carson Wentz. He's only rostered in 3.1% of ESPN leagues. That'll probably pop up to maybe 10, 12%. But you still don't want to go anywhere near him because he's not startable, at least for the next couple of weeks. At running back, Brian Robinson is low-hanging fruit. He's rostered in less than 50%. I think it's it's 45.8% of ESPN leagues. Christian McCaffrey is on pace for 430 touches this season. It's very unrealistic that McCaffrey is going to play every game. It's very unrealistic that he's going to even hit 350 touches at this rate. It just does not make sense to me at all. I don't think it's sustainable. Robinson should get some spot starts. He should be rostered in every league. And I will add Blake Corum and Woody Marks. I've talked about these guys before at various, whether it's, here on the podcast or whether it's on the blog or just talking to myself at home, which I'm allowed to do. Thank you. Blake Corum is rostered in 11.7% of ESPN leagues. Kyron Williams had a fantastic game this past weekend. Great for him. That is far better than I expected. I've been down on Kyron Williams, as most of you know. Blake Corum did very well too. I've been very high on Corum since the summer. I will continue to be high on him. He should be rostered in more leagues. And Woody Marks keeps making a push. He's rostered in only 8.9% of leagues. I think that there is a good chance that he will continue to take on more work alongside Nick Chubb. Whether he takes over is another thing, but 8.9% rostership is way too low. It should be 30 to 40%. Folks who really need, especially in bye weeks, that number 2 running back because they're desperate or they've got an injured running back. Marks could get you 6 to 8 points. It's not bad to stash on your bench in case Nick Chubb gets hurt and Marks becomes the guy, at least until Joe Mixon returns. And then stay away from Dylan Sampson. I talked about this last week, I think on the blog, maybe on the podcast. Once Quinton Judkins was activated, once he showed what he could do in week 2, Dylan Sampson was droppable. There is no reason why people should be holding on to him unless you really believe that Judkins is going to get hurt, which is fair. But even if that happens, Jerome Ford is going to step in and probably play a comparable role. At the very least, lining up with Dylan Sampson as a 50-50. I don't see Sampson taking over this backfield. I've not been impressed by what I've seen so far. He's rostered in 50.7% of leagues. That's a wasted spot. At receiver, one seemingly obvious, kind of, and one not at all obvious, and that's what I like about it. We'll start with Elic Ayomanor. He's someone who some of you talked with me about over the summer. I poo-pooed it. Then heading into this past week, I was like, okay, I'm in. He's now rostered in 21.1% of all leagues. He seems to be the number 1, even if it's not in target share. He is certainly more productive than Calvin Ridley. He is arguably at this stage of his career versus Ridley's, if not more talented, at the very least, more in sync with his quarterback. And that is key. I've talked before about how Ridley keeps cycling through quarterbacks. Through no fault of his own, he has just been cycling through quarterbacks in the past couple years. It is hard to develop that rhythm. Ayomanor looks like someone who should be rostered in pretty much every league as a potential long-term number 1. When I say long-term, November, December, when it matters most, getting you double-digit points at most weeks, maybe even every week, if Ridley is out of the picture. And finally, at receiver, Trey Harris. This one sounds odd, but he is getting an increasing snap share. He's rookie, second rounder. Keenan Allen and Quentin Johnston playing amazing. Ladd McConkey, as expected, not. And where does that leave Trey Harris? He's the number 1 receiver. Why would anyone want to pick him up? It's because if any of those 3 guys gets hurt, Trey Harris could very well step in and be, if not a weekly starter, a fringe weekly streamer. He is rostered in only 7.5% of leagues. Justin Herbert and his passing attack is legit. I'm not saying that Harris would take over if Keenan Allen got hurt. I'm not saying Harris would put up Keenan Allen numbers. What I am saying is this is an offense that can feed 2 to 3 receivers every game. That's what it appears to be at this stage, which means that if you've got a guy who's a number 4 and you have a bench spot to burn, take a flyer on Trey Harris, and if one Charger receiver gets hurt, then you have a guy who could be a streamer. That's not bad for that price. Someone to stay away from is Rashod Bateman. Hopefully this is obvious, and I don't mean to say that, cynically or anything like that. It's just the Ravens' passing attack is not consistent, and that's to put it mildly. Bateman was quiet the first 2 weeks, essentially unstartable. Then he has a nice day last night. I'm going to add to that Mark Andrews, although Mark Andrews is still obviously rosterable. It fits in with Mark Andrews as well. There's other guys who step up. When Derrick Henry and Zay Flowers step up, then Andrews and Bateman generally don't. They fade into into oblivion. So you want to be careful with a guy like Bateman that you're not just chasing points, because in any given week it's going to be somebody else. And in this case, Zay Flowers and Derrick Henry were the ones who suffered as a result of Bateman and Andrews doing well. So consider that before you go out there and say, well, I guess Bateman's back on track. It doesn't work that way in an offense that is generally low passing volume or run heavy like the Ravens. Finally, moving to tight end, Cade Otton, my favorite tight end to roster at this point of the seemingly unrosterable group. Cade Otton's rostered in 13% of ESPN leagues. Mike Evans gets hurt. Chris Godwin might be back. Emeka Egbuka is doing Emeka Egbuka things, but Cade Otton is better than this. Cade Otton actually could be the rest of the way easily a top 12 tight end. He has that skill set. It is somewhat inexplicable that he, unless he's still kind of hurt or whatever it is, or whether he's drawing a defense where Baker Mayfield just says, I'm going with the lower hanging fruit of someone like Egbuka, or I'm dumping off to Bucky Irving or Rashad White, whatever it is. Cade Otton's not getting the love. Don't think of this as, well, Cade Otton is worthless. He is still the same guy that he was last year, in my opinion. He's just starting slow. And finally, very, very finally, tight ends to potentially drop or not pick up. Evan Engram is more of a name at this point. He's not really anywhere close to the guy he used to be on a new team that's pretty packed with Denver. He's rostered in 65.8% of leagues. I don't see anyone rushing to pick him up. Someone might even drop him, and you might think, oh, I'll pick up Engram. He's been great, but not this year. And I think he's already hurt, I think he was ruled out of this past Sunday's game. He's not somebody who we can count on anymore for double-digit points. And that's why we don't want to focus on a guy like Evan Engram wasting time on our bench. The other guy to be careful about, and I understand why people would pick him up, Hunter Henry just went off. He's rostered in less than 50% of leagues, 48.9% to be precise. Of course, Hunter Henry can break things open. He's done it before. I don't know how many times in his career he's had 2 touchdowns. I'm sure it's a bunch. It seems to happen every season, a couple of times. He was solid in week 1, invisible week 2, incredible in week 3. He will be that week 3, 29 fantasy points will be one of the highest that any tight end has this year. Keep in mind, if you pick him up, he will be heading to Buffalo in a couple weeks. He has Cleveland later. He is not going to be an automatic start. I think that if you don't have a top 12 tight end, of course, Hunter Henry, you roll the dice, you hope for one of those huge booms. But that Patriots offense is so confusing, especially the passing game. Well, I should say, especially the running game too, given everything that's happened this past week. But the passing attack is confusing. And I don't like investing in a tight end in a confusing receiving core where there's a bunch of underperformers, Stephon Diggs being one of them, where at any time one of them might break through, one of them might be the guy, the squeaky wheel who breaks out, and Henry leaves you with 4 points. So it's okay to say, yeah, I might as well roster Henry. What's not okay, in my opinion, is if you use fab, free agent, budget, that you're spending a big chunk of it chasing a 29-point tight end that might not average more than 8 points the rest of the way. I'm BJ Riddell, Fantasy Football for Winners. Follow me on the blog. Email me anytime. We'll see you tomorrow.